Hi, I'm Jackie Perkins, and this is Leadership Series number 5, Coaching for Success. So you might be asking, what on earth is coaching for success? I'm going to give you a very simple little analogy that you will never forget. So let's say you've got a child, maybe 3 or 4 years old, and you've decided it's high time they learn to swim. So you've got two options. You can take them down to the local swimming pool and take them to the deep end, throw them into the deep end and see if they come up to the top and whether they manage to doggy paddle to the side and go, awesome, this kid knows how to swim. Or maybe they don't come up to the top and can't doggy paddle to the side, and you have to dive in and rescue them, and you have to take them to the shallow end and now teach them how to swim. So that is coaching for improvement. It is reactive coaching. So we throw our team member into the job, see if they can cope, and if they can't, we go, hell's bells, maybe I need to give them some tools and some skills to make sure they're successful. But by that point, the kid now looks at me and goes, I don't like you, I don't trust you, I don't like swimming, I don't think I'm good at swimming, I don't want to do it anymore. And our team members do the same. Or we can go with the other approach, coaching for success, where we say, I tell you what, let's go to the shallow end. Let's dip your toe in the water. Let's get you used to it. Let's hold you under the tummy. Let's give you some strokes. Let's practice with just doing small little widths, and then we'll eventually get you to lengths. And voila, you now are swimming. So if I had to ask you this question, how much time do you spend coaching for success proactively, and how much time do you spend coaching for improvement reactively out of 100%? What would your answer be? Most leaders that I talk to will admit to me that they spend a large majority of their time coaching for improvement, because it's only when there's a crisis that they step into coach. Otherwise, we hope and pray that the team member knows what they're doing. So I want us just to challenge that concept and say, the more time I spend coaching for success, the less time I'm going to need to coach for improvement, the reactive coaching, which has now damaged their confidence and damaged their trust in me as a leader. So I'm going to give you some tools on how we can actually coach for success. Before we do that, I want us just to think about the role of a coach. I mentioned Socrates in the Delegation, not Abdication series video, which was all about, I cannot teach you anything, I can only make you stop and think. Now, the role of a coach is not to teach. The role of the coach is not to tell. The role of the coach is to empower self-discovery, to encourage that sweet moment of, I don't know this, I need to learn it, I'd like to learn it, and they have that incredible moment of self-discovery. So in order to do this, we need to really make sure that we have an understanding on what it takes to communicate effectively. So what does the word communication mean to you? Let's say you had a foreigner move in with you for a couple of weeks. They're learning to speak English, and they say to you, you know, we've heard this word communication. What does it actually mean? The word communication comes from the Latin word communicare, which means common understanding. So it actually doesn't matter how eloquent you are, how motivational you are, what huge vocabulary you have. If you are not achieving common understanding, if the person hasn't received the message the way you'd like them to receive it, and you haven't received their message the way they like you to receive it, so that you've got a common understanding, we are not communicating effectively. So let's talk about how we are going to communicate effectively when coaching our team members. I'm going to give you a number of steps to consider to set up and conduct a successful coaching conversation. So step number 1, I want you to really analyze your intention. Sharon Salzberg said, each decision we make, each action we take is born out of an intention. So what is your intention when you go to coach one of your team members? Is your intention to prove that they're wrong and they don't know what they're doing? Is it to set them up for success? Is it because you believe they're capable of more? Is it to empower them to take on a new role? What story are you telling yourself about this coachee? Remember in leadership series number 1, developing a leadership mindset, we spoke about fact or story. What story are we telling ourselves about our coachee? What is our intention? What are we hoping to achieve? On that note, I want you to think about the difference between manipulation and influence. So remember, in our very first video, we spoke about influence being the intention to get a win-win outcome. I want you to be successful for yourself and for the team and for the business. Influence. Or manipulate, I need you to do this because it's going to help me achieve my KPIs. So we want to really look at it from a perspective of how are we going to influence this person to succeed rather than manipulate them to succeed. What is my genuine intention? So our second step is to examine that internal narrative. What story are you telling yourself about this person that you're about to coach? What story are you telling yourself about this situation? So are you telling yourself a healthy, helpful, and productive story? I really believe they've got the opportunity to learn something new. I believe in them. I think they want to learn. I think they have the potential. I think this situation gives us a great opportunity to get them ready to take on this new role. Or are we going into the coaching with, I just have to do this, pay lip service, tick the box. I don't think they're going to learn anything. I don't think they're engaged. I don't think they're a team player. What is your internal dialogue? Or it might even be about yourself. You might have an unhealthy internal narrative that goes, I'm not good at coaching. I'm not good at helping people learn something new. Or actually, I love supporting people. I love getting people to develop and grow. What is your internal narrative before you go into this coaching scenario? Is it healthy? Is it helpful? And is it productive? Now, the third step I want you to think about is something we also looked at in our leadership series number 1, developing a leadership mindset. Is it healthy, helpful, and productive? And part of that was our physiology. So we spoke about, is our physiology strong and bold and confident? Is it making us feel confident and powerful? Or is our physiology with our shoulders shrunk, our back bent over, which creates anxiety? So really thinking about our physiology, as Mark Bowden said, we can convey positive energy without saying a word. When I walk into that coaching discussion with my coachee, my nonverbals convey 93% of my message. So if my internal narrative is, I don't think this person's going to cut the mustard. I don't think they have what it takes. I don't think they're going to learn anything. My nonverbals are going to be coming across as lackluster, disinterested, can't be bothered. And my coachee immediately, without me opening my mouth, is going to pick up from my nonverbals that actually me as their boss has no faith in them, no belief in them, does not believe they're going to be successful. So what is my physiology actually conveying to them? Is it creating confidence for myself? Is it creating confidence for my coachee? The fourth step is really about their world. What knowledge do they currently have to do this job? Asking them, what knowledge do you have of our industry? What knowledge do you have of the products and services? What knowledge do you have about compliance legislation, processes, and systems that we use here? And then ask them, what knowledge do you believe you still need to acquire? Where do you think you'll get this knowledge from? What resources would you need to get that knowledge from? Would you like to have a buddy? Would you like a mentor? Would you like to do some online courses? How are you going to get this knowledge? The second thing we want to ask them around their world is, what skills do they believe they need to be able to take on this new role? And when we look at skills, we look at 2 types of skills. We look at technical skills and we look at behavioral skills. So now technical skills are things like, can you use an Excel spreadsheet? Can you drive a bobcat? Can you set up an IV line if you're a registered nurse? The behavioral competencies are things like priority management, listening, questioning, influencing, negotiating, decision-making, delegating. So you say, what skills do you believe you need to be successful when you take on this role? What skills do you currently have? And what skills do you need to acquire, both technical and behavioral? And then the next question, how are you going to acquire these skills? What resources will you need? Buddy, mentoring, on-the-job training, online courses. How are you going to equip yourself to be successful? So can you see, by asking these questions, you are really getting them to think about what that role requires. You're really getting them to think about what they already know and understand, what they still need to know and understand, and how they're going to get it. This is crucially important so that they take ownership and accountability for their development. If we do not take this approach, what we're going to do is we are going to create what I refer to as learned helplessness. So what is learned helplessness? Again, I'm going to share a little story with you. So when my eldest son was in grade 2, the headmistress called us in and said, Mrs. Perkins, your son is suffering from a disease called learned helplessness, and we think you've inflicted him with it. And I was so offended. I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, he can't do anything for himself. He has to be instructed on everything. So I went home and I started observing him. And I realized he'd come home from school, plonk his bag on the dining room table. And I'd say, what are you doing? He said, I'm waiting for you to come do homework with me. He wouldn't take out the homework book, read it. This is what I have to do, give it an attempt. He would literally wait for me to orchestrate the entire homework event from beginning to end. Because that's what good mothers do, don't they? And I then realized I did the exact same thing with my team members at work. They'd come to me and say, oh, Jackie, we've got a big pitch to this advertising agency, Ogilvy and Mather in Johannesburg tomorrow. We're not sure how to finish off the proposal. Could you help us? And what would I do? I'd say, sure, hand it over. And 5 o'clock, they would toddle off out the office and I'd have smoke coming out of my ears. And 7 p.m., I'd still be sitting there working on it. And I realized, oh my God, I'm doing it with my team as well. I'm creating learned helplessness. Instead of asking them, what thought have you put into this so far? What do you think you need to know to be able to do it? What skills do you have? What skills do you need to acquire? What specific help do you need? What about I put some guidelines together for you, you take it away and work on those guidelines, setting them up for success, coaching for success, instead of telling, instructing, and creating learned helplessness. So what is fantastic is we actually have a beautiful model that is going to help you with that. And that is called the GROW model. So I'm going to walk you through the GROW model so that you can feel comfortable using it. So before I get into the GROW model, I just want to actually take us through how we learn. Now, some of you may be familiar with this. And the way I'm going to describe this to you is by talking you through, again, a little story. My youngest son, Tommy, was 8 years younger than my eldest, still is 8 years younger than my eldest, and 5 years younger than my daughter. So when they were learning to drive, he would sit in the back seat as they were having driving lessons and go, ha, I would never do that. Ha, I know how to do that. So when it came to him learning how to drive, I was a little bit mean and ugly to him. So with the elder two, we put them into automatic cars first, got them used to the road, and then moved them to manuals. With Tommy, we put him straight into a manual. And I took him down to the schoolyard and I said, turn on the car, which he did. And then he stalled. And he turned around and he went, oh, Mom, what do I do? And I just experienced that sweet moment of consciously incompetent. Now, why is this so important? We don't know what we don't know. So we start off unconsciously incompetent. So he's sitting in the back seat of the car. Oh, I'd never do that. I know how to do that. Unconsciously incompetent. We don't know what we don't know. Now, if we start instructing at that point, The brain is not receptive to hearing it. The brain is not receptive to listening to it because they're already telling themselves, I know this stuff. So when we're coaching someone, we've got to realize they don't know what they don't know. And we need to actually create this sweet moment of consciously incompetent. So tell me, what skills would you need to be successful in this role? Tell me if this challenge happened, how you would handle it. Tell me what knowledge you have around this particular topic. And only when you've created this sweet moment of consciously incompetent and they have this aha moment, the self-discovery moment of actually, I don't know it, is the brain receptive to hearing your gems, your pearls of wisdom, which is where we now start to impart knowledge and we start to coach. And this is where the person becomes consciously competent. But what we need to be aware of, as the person becomes consciously competent, it's not natural to them. They feel awkward, they feel out of their comfort zone. And as they try new things, they go, this feels strange, this feels weird, I don't want to do it. So the default is to go, I'll just go back to what I used to do. And this is where we really need to encourage. This is where we really need to give positive feedback and say, keep going, you're getting there, well done. I know it feels awkward and uncomfortable because eventually you're going to become unconsciously competent, where it's just second nature, where you just drive without thinking, has my clutch gone in, am I in first gear or second gear? But we have to push through this. So we as coaches need to help them push through this to get to this moment of being unconsciously competent, second nature. So let's look at our GROW model. You will see on the slide that we have a framework that you can use. It stands for the word GROW, and if we unpack it, the G stands for goals, the R stands for reality, the options, the O stands for option, and the W stands for either wrap it up or will, which is what are we going to do? What will we do to make it happen? So those are your 4 steps that you're going to cover in your GROW model. But again, you're going to be a Socrates. You're not going to tell at any one of these junctures. You're going to ask questions. Now, there are a couple of coaching tools that I've supplied to you on my website under the coaching tool drop-down menu that I'd like you to look for. The one is called diagnostic tools. The other one is called solution questions and action questions. And there's also a copy of the GROW model. So go have a look for solution questions, diagnostic questions, and the GROW model. So let's pull all of this together. When we use the GROW model, we want to be asking questions exactly as I said before when I talked about what knowledge and what skills they need to have. So what are your goals in terms of what knowledge you need to acquire to be successful in this role? What skills do you need to acquire to be successful in the role? By when do you want to have that? Those are their goals. Instead of you telling them, you need to get these skills, you need to get this knowledge. It has to come from them, a place of self-discovery. The analogy I often use is that if you've ever had the unfortunate experience of having a drug addict or an alcoholic in your family or friendship circle, you can't just drag them off to rehab. They have to say, I need help, I want help. It's the same with this. You can't say you need to develop new skills, you need to get more knowledge. You've got to ask them, what knowledge and skills do you think you require to be successful? The R is the reality. So this is where you're going to use your diagnostic questions. This is where you're going to ask them questions around, well, what is happening right now? What is your skill set right now? Where are you lacking? What are some of the things that aren't working for you? Where are some things going wrong for you at the moment? What are some things that you believe need to be done differently? What's getting in the way? And then we can move through to options. Well, how are we going to address this? And this is where we can move to our solution questions. So what are some suggestions you have for getting these skills? What would work best for you? A buddy, a mentor, online training, on-the-job training. What would work best for you? And we really just brainstorm some options through solution questions. And finally, The wrap it up or the will is where we go to the action questions. So when would you like that to happen? When would you like to meet? How are we going to track and measure your support? How will we know when you've been successful? And what you've done is you've got a beautiful framework to ensure success, but you've also facilitated it from your coachee. Instead of telling, you have actually facilitated it from them to encourage full ownership and accountability. So you're not kicking them up the hill every 5 minutes. You're simply developing a doer then. You want to develop critical thinkers. You want people to take ownership. So if I make this very, very simple, let's say this is my coaching conversation from beginning to end. This is 100% coaching conversation from beginning to end. Your aim is to spend 80% of this conversation seeking. When I talk seeking, asking questions, and not just any type of questions, open questions to really get the conversation. My big, big little pearl, my little gem for you is TED. TED is my friend. People very often get stuck on what, when, how, who, where. But when we use TED, tell me a little bit more about that. Talk me through that. Explain that scenario to me. Describe the situation to me. TED is a beautiful way of actually using open questions to get a conversation flowing and getting them to take ownership so that we do the seeking for 80% of the time and only 20% of the time do we tell. The big mistake we make when we think we have to coach, impart knowledge, I know everything, you know nothing, so I'm just going to tell. And all that happens is the person on the receiving end goes into boredom, brain shuts down, and then we do the fatal mistake. Did you understand that? Yes? Did you get that? Yes? And then they go off and do something entirely different, and you go, holy moly, what's wrong with these people? I just explained it all to them. They said they understood it, and they've gone and done something entirely different. So absolutely crucial is how you end that conversation off. Instead of you summarizing it, you're going to say, tell me, what were the key takeouts of that conversation for you? Talk me through your action plan. Talk me through how you're going to make that happen. What are some of the challenges you foresee? What were the 3 most important points to you? What were your biggest learnings? Tell me, how committed are you to that outcome? How committed are you to this process? What worked for you around this coaching conversation? What do you think we could have done differently? What do you think we could have done better? So really make sure when you end off that meeting, again, you're not summarizing, you're not telling, you're throwing it back so that you will immediately pick up where the gaps of understanding are, where the lack of information is, instead of you doing all the talking and they sit passively listening and they actually have misunderstood. Common understanding. How are you going to achieve common understanding? Not by telling and saying, did you get that? But asking, what was your takeout? What did you understand? What are you going to put in place? What's missing for you? What do you still need to know? And then you can immediately see where the gaps are. I just really need to add this in. Don't forget about series number 2, adapting your leadership style. Not one size fits all coaching. Remember, you've got 4 different birds that you're going to be coaching to. Yeah? So remember, if I'm coaching to an eagle, they want it short, sharp, to the point, facts. They want options. They want to be in control. They want to know outcomes. They want to know what it's going to look like. They're going to want to know how it benefits the bottom line. Why does it impact the business? Why does it impact revenue? When I'm talking to my peacock, remember when I'm coaching my peacock, they actually are interested in anecdotes, testimonials, case studies, stories. We've got to keep them on track because they jump all over the place. They're going to want to know how this coaching is going to enable them to look good, how it's going to raise their profile, how it's going to improve their reputation, how it will improve their visibility. If we are coaching a dove, They really don't want to be made to feel uncomfortable or made to feel as though only they need coaching. They want to see how it's going to benefit the team. They want to know how it's going to improve morale, how it's actually going to improve relationships. We really need to be gentle in our approach, give them time to think, slow our pace, slow our volume, make sure they have time to deliberate. And our R, they're going to want all the pros and cons. They want time to deliberate. They want to do their due diligence. They want to do their research. We don't want to rush them through the process. They want to see how it's going to add value to quality outcomes and to accuracy, to predictability. These are their WIFM factors. So remember to really hone it and adapt it to your particular bird that you're coaching. I have mentioned our nonverbals. I'm going to wrap up with that nonverbal message again. 93% of our message is nonverbal. So what are our nonverbals saying when we are coaching? Are we conveying confidence in them, belief in them? So one of my favorite resources is Mark Bowden. I will put it in my favorite resource list for you. He's got some great books and some great TED Talks that you can go and have a look at. So here are your coaching questions. How much time am I spending coaching for success? Am I spending more time coaching for improvement and very little time coaching for success? Remember, the more time I spend coaching for success, the less time I need to spend coaching for improvement. Am I asking questions or am I simply telling? How can I use the GROW model to ensure a successful coaching outcome? How can I adapt my coaching style to those different team members, to my owls, my doves, my peacocks? And very importantly, what messages are my non-verbal sending? So please remember, have a look at the supporting tools. The coaching tools are available on my website, which you can download as PDFs. There's a list of my favorite resources in terms of TED Talks and books that you can look at. If you'd like the slides, very happy to email them to you if you just flick me an email. And if you'd like some one-on-one virtual coaching or group coaching for your team around coaching, I'd be very happy to deliver that to you. Just give me a ring. You know what to do. Until next time, be bold, be curious.